Hey there guys, Matthew here and welcome to episode 9 of our F1 2019 career mode, and we are here today for the French Grand Prix. And of course, if you didn't see the last episode where we had the Canadian Grand Prix, please go and check that out because, spoiler alert, we had our best result of the season. It was a very successful Grand Prix for us, and we're looking to continue that momentum here at Paul Ricard. Bit of bad news, or a bit of iffy news off the track to start with. Of course, we did have, I think, 2 upgrades expected for this weekend's race, and unfortunately one of them has failed quality control, and it was the major chassis upgrade, which I believe we've had. I think we've been working on that for maybe 4 race weekends now, so it's been a part that we've been waiting quite a long time for, and unfortunately it has failed, so we're going to have to try and get that fixed, hopefully for next weekend's Grand Prix. But I do believe the other upgrade that we made, which I think might have been, I think we had the durability, which is guaranteed to pass nevertheless. I think the other upgrade was a aero upgrade. I can't quite remember which one it was, but the other upgrade that we did have has successfully come through on the car. So what we're going to do first of all is, with the 800 plus resource points that we do have, we're going to spend them fixing the rear floor under tray. So that major upgrade will take an extra week to fix, and it'll be ready for Austria, which of course is the next race weekend. So that's not too bad. We're delayed a week there, but as you can see from the R&D, it's plateaued a little bit. We are still right within the mix of the midfield, ahead of McLaren and Renault, I believe it is, and Toro Rosso I think we're just ahead of, but we've got a little bit of catching up to do with Racing Point and Haas just above us there. So yeah, we're going to get ready to go for qualifying now for the French Grand Prix, and it's been quite a good weekend so far for us in practice. We've not been quite as good as we were in Canada, but we're not too far off. So let's see how we can do and qualify for the French Grand Prix. So here we are for qualifying, our first lap. And yeah, I forgot to mention that the weather is going to get a little bit wet towards the end of this first qualifying session. So I believe in 10 minutes time it is going to start to rain. So although I can't see anybody getting caught out by the conditions, with there being plenty of time to get a lap in, it is worth just getting out as early as possible, just in case the weather does come early. It can happen sometimes on the F1 game, get caught out by the weather, but you've got to assume that the data that the guys in the garage have gathered is correct. So here we are for our first lap in the dry, and Paul Ricard's an interesting circuit because it's got plenty of long straights which suit us, a bit like Bahrain and Baku. But at the same time, it's got a lot of long sweeping corners, especially the final third sector. It reminds me of China and a couple of tracks like that, and obviously the car, with not having the best aero package, will struggle around them sort of long sweeping corners. So here we go around the first one, a corner that does just go on and on forever. You've just got to hang on in there, pick up the throttle on the apex as the next long sweeping corner comes right up, and again it's got to be timed right. We get a little bit of the curb there and drift slightly through that corner, which I don't think will help us. Another long sweeping left-hander before quickly switching into the final corner. And yeah, that final sector wasn't the best. We'll straighten the car up, we'll stick to the left-hand side, the shortest run to the line, and that puts us in P3 currently. And from what I can see, there is a few drops of rain coming down, and that's what I mean. Rain on the computer in the garage was scheduled to be 10 minutes, but it's starting to rain now. So hopefully, if the track can sort of get wetter really quickly here, it should start affecting any people who've not got a run on the slicks just yet. So Butler has just gone faster than us, so there might still be a bit of pace out there. So yeah, I think we've got our one and only dry lap in. We just need to cross our fingers and hope it's quick enough to get us into Q2. So at the end of the session, as you can see, our first lap was good enough. We got it in just in time. So we do qualify, or we do get through to Q2, the 8th fastest car in the session. And a couple of cars did get caught out by the conditions. As you can see, our teammate Kimi Raikkonen must have got caught up as well, because he could only put in a late 1:35.8. which is significantly slower, 2 seconds slower than us. So he drops out along with Nico Hülkenberg, who got put in a 1:37.3, so Renault really have mucked up his lap, along with Lance Stroll in the Racing Point, and I believe they were looking strong around this track, so that'll be disappointing for them. Kevin Magnussen drops out again in Q1, as does Lando Norris. His teammate Carlos Sainz squeezes through, as does the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc and also Sebastian Vettel. So yeah, the two Ferraris must have cut it fine, but they are both through to Q2, as is Lucas Weber, and as you can see, Devon Butler also through alongside ourselves. He was a little bit faster there. So yeah, a couple of cars dropping out, but yeah, the main thing is we're through to the second round of qualifying. So we are for Q2, and as you can see, the track has deteriorated massively, and we are now in the full wet tyres. And like a couple of other races so far this season, I think Baku was one of them, we've not been able to drive around Paul Ricard in the wet weather yet this weekend. So we are just guessing on grip levels, braking points, etc. So this is just going to be off instinct. But we've gone out as soon as we possibly could for our first lap, just in case the track is going to gradually get worse. We want to try and make the most of what grip we might have out here. But yeah, we're taking it very easy through the first sector there. Hopefully we'll be able to gain a little bit of time down the straight, but as we've seen, our car is not the best in the wetter conditions, as obviously the wet weather requires a little bit more downforce, and we do not have the downforce that a lot of other cars on the track do have. But it's not been a bad lap so far. Daniel Ricciardo puts in the fastest lap so far at 1:50. Charles Leclerc then tops that, as we maybe get a little bit too much into that corner there, just trying to judge when to brake. These long sweeping corners will be the hardest to judge. Just caressing the throttle, make sure we don't get on it too early, because the car will spin, but we don't want to also lose too much time. So it's not been too bad considering this is our first run, but we honestly have no idea how fast we are or how good this lap has been in comparison to the rest. It's felt clean enough. So here we are around the final corner. We're going to go over the line, and it's going to be a, well, it's not a bad, it's a 1:48.9, which isn't a bad lap at all. It's faster than Charles Leclerc in the works Ferrari. So that might raise a few eyebrows in the paddock. The little sister team that is the Alfa Romeo quicker than the Ferrari. Obviously, the wet conditions do bring the cars a lot closer together in terms of performance. But we'll definitely take that for a first lap in Q2. And we'll head back to the garage and see how this qualifying session develops as Max Verstappen goes quicker. So here we are at the end of Q2, and as you can see, we've left this final lap as late as possible because the track has begun to dry up rapidly to the point where we're out now on intermediate tyres. So as quickly as the conditions deteriorated between Q1 and Q2, they've improved massively, and it's now really dry. So it's all about just timing the lap to perfection, and we've made sure we are the last car out. And we've started our lap with, I think, only about 15-20 seconds left, but you can just see how much we've gained compared to the previous lap. And the problem is everyone else is going to be gaining as well, so hopefully with us going out as late as possible, we will get the best of the track, and hopefully we'll get it at its most dry. And it could make all the difference and getting us into Q2. And with the race being dry as well, we're going to have a similar scenario to what we did in Canada. It won't matter what tyre we get into Q3 on, if we do get into Q3, as we go a little bit too far over the curb there, a little bit too eager, because we'll be starting the race in the dry, so we can get into Q3 here and have a fresh choice of tyre for the race. But we just need to ensure that we are going to get through. As you can see, we've dropped to 13th, the track's getting quicker. Most of the drivers ahead have submitted their final times. Down to 14th now, So again, we're not going to know quite how fast this lap is in comparison to the other drivers, but we've improved by almost 4 seconds. So are we going to get through to Q3 for back-to-back races? We have. So we've qualified in 7th, and our good judgment of the conditions gets us through to Q3 for the second race in a row. Not by much. In fact, well actually yeah it is. So you can see the difference there. We posted a 1:44.8, whereas Devon Butler, who dropped out in 11th, bless his heart, he was over a second slower. So once again it was all about timing. Obviously pace does play a part, but we were a good judgment of the conditions. We timed our route lap perfectly, and we've got into Q3 once again. So dropping out is Alexander Albon along with his teammate Devon Butler, George Russell, as well as Romain Grosjean and Daniel Ricciardo. Lucas Weber then joins us in Q3. I think this might be his first Q3 appearance of the season. You've got Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, as well as ourselves, and of course all of the top 6. So yeah, we're through to Q3 for the third race in a row. So let's see where we'll start on the grid for tomorrow's race. So here we are for Q3, and because we've spent both Q1 and Q2 on the wet and intermediate tyres, for the most part we have 3 spare sets of the soft tyres. So we can have as many runs as we want really, as we have to lift slightly going through there, which we didn't want. So plenty of opportunities here to get through, to get as high up the grid as possible. Whereas in Canada we only had the 1 set of softs. But so we've got a couple of opportunities. It's not been the best lap so far from us though, I've got to say. But yeah, what a qualifying session we've had. We've had all conditions. Dry to the wet, to the inters, and back to dry again. So let's see if we can show the consistent pace that we did on the inters and the wets on these slick soft tyres. Much better second sector so far though. Sebastian Vettel on provisional pole currently with a 1:33.7 I believe. Completely flat round this right-hander and into the difficult technical third and final sector. Timed that quite well. Just got to keep the car in the corner as tight as possible. Don't let it go. Don't want any bit of understeer through here. It could lose you a good couple of tenths. And that's quite clean through there. Final corner, we'll enter it a little bit sharper. Get on the throttle as soon as possible. Put the power down into hot lap mode DRS. We cross the line and we are third fastest at the moment. So an incredible lap once again. And this time we're ahead of the works Ferrari, being Sebastian Vettel. So another outstanding lap from us. It didn't feel too great, to be fair. Feels like there's a little bit more time for us out on track. But yeah, we're in third at the moment, which is an incredible first qualifying lap. Make that fourth with Hamilton crossing the line. But yeah, we've got a couple of spare sets of tyres. So let's see if we're going to need them.
Very happy with that position. Well done.
So we're at the end of Q3 and we made a little bit of a mistake because we waited, tried to leave it as late as possible again to get our final lap in, and there was still a good 2.5 minutes left. Of course it is a 1.5 minute lap around Paul Ricard, and then when we went out for our flying lap we basically had 20 seconds left to get over the start finish line, and yeah, we crossed the line about half a second after qualifying had finished, so we didn't actually get our final lap in. We were probably better driving out ourselves rather than relying on the flying lap, which, even though we did have plenty of time, we just didn't get round quick enough for whatever reason. So we qualify in 8th, which is still a very good qualifying position. As you can see there, we would have had to have gained by over a second to have beaten Sergio Perez anyway, which I don't think we would have done. And then obviously you've got the top 6 there. I think Gasly and maybe another top 6 driver hadn't put in their first lap after we did, so that's why we were a little bit higher. But we realistically could have maybe beaten Carlos Sainz, so the best we could have had was 7th, but nevertheless we'll start in 8th. Lucas Weber will start behind us in 9th. He was over a second off our pace, which is a bit strange. And I don't know why, but Valtteri Bottas did not put in a time in Q3. And I have no idea why. He had one invalidated lap for exceeding the track limits, but that's about it. So I have no idea why Valtteri didn't put a lap in. A little bit of a surprise. Maybe he had a collision or a mechanical problem. But he'll start behind us, which obviously gives us an extra place. So yeah, we're starting in 8th place for the French Grand Prix. Let's see how we get on in the race tomorrow.
Welcome to Le Castellet as we return from across the Atlantic for the 2019 French Grand Prix. Reintroduced to the Formula One calendar just last year after an absence of almost 3 decades. The circuit, Paul Ricard, where racing legends such as Alain Prost gave us some Turn 1 excitement before Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel and a commanding victory from Lewis Hamilton gave us a brilliant race last year. What, I wonder, will it have in store for us this season? A lap of Paul Ricard then consists of 15 corners and a total length of around 3.6 miles. Drivers will need to position their cars carefully on the exit of the flat-out turn 10, ready for the double apex right-hander at 11. Watch out for potential overtaking action at the end of the start-finish straight and into the heavy braking zone of turn 8. A warm welcome to Anthony Davidson, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Why don't we discuss McLaren? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Gasly, Vettel, Max Verstappen and Perez, Sainz, the Rainmaster, Weber and Valtteri Bottas, Butler, Ricciardo, Romain Grosjean and Russell, Albon, Norris, Kevin Magnussen and Kimi Raikkonen. Stroll and Nico Hülkenberg completes the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Now that we've got some points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
Couldn't agree more with you, Jeff. Here we are on the grid then for the French Grand Prix. And it's a pretty straightforward strategy by the looks of it. A one-stop looks like the way to go. I know tyre wear isn't too bad around here at Paul Ricard, so we should be okay on the medium to hard tyre. We do have a free choice of tyre, of course, so you could always maybe try the soft, but they won't last 12 laps. As you can see, yeah, 8 laps at the very most, and they start to degrade massively. And then you'd have to cling on to the hard tyre. So it's not worth it really going on the softs. The only really alternative strategy is hard to medium, medium to hard. But I think we'll stick with that. We'll go with the mediums to start off, and then hopefully as the track beds in, the hard tyres shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, like I say, tyre wear's not too bad around Paul Ricard, so we should be okay nevertheless. So let's go and have the formation lap and see how we go in the race. So here we are for the French Grand Prix, and it's lights out and away we go, and we get a little bit of wheel spin. It's not the best start from us. We've got Lucas Weber now coming up on our left hand side, Bottas just behind. We'll try and cover them both off as we maybe go around the outside of Sainz. Weber's got his nose on the inside, but we'll try and keep him and cover him off as we just about do. And we remain in 8th place for now. But yeah, very bold start by Lucas Weber. Of course, we do have Valtteri Bottas behind us as well in the Merc, which will have a ridiculous amount of straight line speed. So we've maintained P8, and Bottas has already dispatched of Lucas Weber, and there's 3 or 4 cars going wheel to wheel down this long straight, which of course will be DRS enabled soon enough. I think Verstappen and Perez there getting a little bit close as well into that left-hander. But it's not been the best start from us. We're looking behind us already rather than ahead. We do have that very quick Mercedes just behind us. And we'll keep, I think, Bottas behind for the first lap here, as it's very difficult to overtake in this final sector. But we just want to sort of catch back up to Sainz and Perez. We don't want to lose touch with them. But Bottas is right in our gearbox at the moment. Here we are through the first sector, and Bottas has just got an incredible exit as we just try and stick around the outside, cover him off into the left-hander, and now through the double right-hander. Bottas still behind us, but I think as soon as DRS is enabled, he's going to be right up our gearbox. In fact, he gets an absolutely terrific exit out of that corner, and there's nothing we can do here against the Mercedes. This isn't really our fight, but we'll give it our best shot as we try and brake later than Bottas. We don't want him to chop across our front wing, so Bottas goes around the outside and has the inside for the next right-hander. So we've surrendered the position to the Mercedes. I don't think we can get it back here, or we are catching him. But not the best start from us. I'm not sure where the pace is at the moment. Sainz and Perez have got away from us, and we've got Grosjean behind us now. We just need to compose ourselves and get our head down in these early stages. Looking behind me as well, we've got Butler and I think a Renault. So I have no idea where Lucas Weber has gone. So let's see if we can just get into a bit of a rhythm and yeah, stop what's been quite a shaky start to this Grand Prix so far. Here we are again down this long straight. DRS is very overpowered. We've got Grosjean, who's going to take the slipstream from us and go around our outside. We're going to try and outbrake him. We don't want to lose another position around this corner. We get very aggressive defending against the Haas car, and we just keep Grosjean behind us. But we are really struggling in these early stages. I have no idea what it is, but yeah, we just cannot keep up with the cars ahead, and we're just defending really early in this Grand Prix. Bottas has disposed of, well, Verstappen it is, who's in 8th place ahead of us. So quite a few surprising.
Okay, we need some energy harvesting. Reduce ERS deployment.
Surprising positional changes here early in this race. We've knocked the ERS down to medium, but as always, it's struggling to recharge again. I did think it was the energy store that might have been slightly wearing, so I put a new energy store component into the car, and it still doesn't seem to be making a difference. So we'll have to knock that down to low, and we're going to have to try and use a little bit of excess fuel. Might make the car a little bit lighter, and just try to get us away from Grosjean. I think we've stretched the gap slightly. So we're on lap 11, and we've finally caught up to the group of 3 cars ahead of us. I think it's Perez, Verstappen and Sainz who are fighting it out in front of us, as Sainz I think is trying to switch back and perhaps get Verstappen into this long right-hander. So we've just been stuck behind this, slowly catching these 3 up as they've been squabbling. And there's been another 3-way fight between I think it's Ricciardo, Butler and Grosjean behind us. But yeah, it's all been happening in and around us, but just not for us so far. We've not really had much going on at all in this Grand Prix, but we get a good exit out of the final corner. We'll knock it up into overtake mode to see if we can get Sainz on this straight.
Box. We're coming in this lap.
We're asked to box by the team. Sainz goes defensive to the inside. We'll swap to the outside, try and hang around the outside of that McLaren. Sainz gives us the room and we squeeze him, and Sainz generously allows us by there, and we're up into P9. It's a shame we have to pit at the end of this lap, because I think our pace feels quite good in comparison. So we might just stay out for a little bit longer. Tyre wear's not too bad around here at all. So Verstappen ahead, who is surprisingly getting caught up in this midfield fight. Don't think we quite have the slipstream, as he's going to make a move for Sergio Perez. Round the outside goes Max Verstappen, forcing the Racing Point car to the outside, and Max sticks the move to the Racing Point car and goes up into P6.
Box now, please. Box this lap.
Max is now going defensive against Perez through this fast right-hander. We seem to have left Sainz behind a little bit, so hopefully we can focus on Perez and Verstappen. But the team wanting us to box at the moment, but I'm not feeling it. I'm wanting to stay out. There's some overtaking to be done as we drift round that corner slightly, which could be a sign of tyre wear. But them two do pit, so the two cars in front of us have pitted. And Sainz has behind us too, so that's a sign for me that we have to react on this next lap.
Okay, you're in the top 10.
So we are promoted up into P4 momentarily, but a lot of the cars around us have just pitted. So what we'll do is we'll try and put in the best in lap as possible, increase the ARS, increase the mix of the fuel, and hopefully we can get an overcut on the three cars in front of us, being Verstappen, Perez and Sainz, who was just behind us. So here we are in the pits then. We
Kimi is in for his stop.
made a slight mistake as we entered the pits. They've changed the pit lane here in Paul Ricard, so we actually were slightly over the speed limit as we come into the pits.
Exit
So
now.
we've got a 5-second penalty which will be added on to whatever time we have at the end of the Grand Prix. So a little bit of a mistake by ourselves there.
That was our
But we come out of the pits
No more scheduled pit
and we've
stops.
come out just behind Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz. So Sainz has got the undercut on us. Sergio Perez just stays out in ahead of us. And I think Verstappen's jumped all of us. So unfortunately the overcut didn't quite work for us in this scenario. Verstappen is the big winner there, but we're onto the hard tyres now, and with that 5-second penalty that we got by speeding in the pits, and I think we were over by maybe a couple of kilometres, we are going to have to make some positions and some time up towards the end of this race. So here we are, DRS enabled. We're going to see if we can maybe catch Sainz napping, as he's going to try and get on the inside of Sergio Perez. He defends to the inside against Carlos Sainz, who's going wheel to wheel with us.
They have an issue with their car.
But we just get ahead of Sainz and we're up to P8, and as we've just heard over the radio, Max Verstappen, despite getting that incredible undercut on all three of us, he is suffering for some mechanical problems. So we're probably going to catch up to Max as well. So yeah, it's a shame for him. The great work that the pit crew did obviously in that pit stop might be undone here. Sainz is right behind us as we've dropped the ARS down to low again. We just cannot recharge the battery. It's becoming a real thorn in our side is the ARS. But we'll take a sharper line slightly onto this back straight. Despite not having much in the battery, we'll knock it up into high. Perez defends to the inside. We'll try to go around the outside of turn 1. Brake a bit later, it means we have the inside for the second turn. Squeeze out Perez, and that puts us up into P7. So here we go down this long straight, and I think we're going to be a sitting duck to the Racing Point car and potentially the McLaren. Look at the speed that Perez is gaining. We'll try and break the slipstream, but he's just way too quick in that Racing Point car, and he blitzes past us down this straight. Nothing we can do there. We just took him behind to save chipping our front wing, and we're back down to P8. We run a little bit wide heading into that long sweeping left-hander. Give Carlos Sainz a chance there. We open the door slightly, but we just shut it in time, and we're back on the start-finish straight alongside Sergio Perez once again. We have DRS this time. Perez goes to the inside once more.
Turn down the ERS deployment, we can harvest more
Going
energy.
to try and repeat the move that we did on the previous lap, and once again we squeeze out Perez, who's now going to be put under pressure by Sainz. Perez going defensive to the inside. We'll keep our eyes out in front, as I think Perez has kept ahead of Sainz there in 8th. We really would like a bit of DRS assistance off Verstappen, and if we can get past Verstappen and stick him between us and the Racing Point car, that would make our lives a little bit easier, as Verstappen goes defensive. Clearly has a mechanical problem in that Red Bull car, going very slow through this third sector, and that's bringing Perez and Sainz back into play. So we've encountered Verstappen in the worst possible place really, as we get another little kick of oversteer there. Perez right behind us now. We could have really done with overtaking Verstappen on a straight just to clear him out the way, but we've got the start-finish straight now, so we take a sharper line, and you can just see the difference between us and the Red Bull, and we're not even going to use any ERS. We're going to fly past Verstappen,
Good job, nice overtake.
who's absolutely helpless on the straight. And we move up into P6. Thankfully Verstappen is between us and the racing point. So that might give us a little bit of breathing space here in the first sector. So we're on to lap 19, and it's news that we probably don't want to hear, but Sebastian Vettel has pulled over ahead of us with an engine failure, and that has prompted...
Take the safety car. You may overtake the safety car. It is waiting to pick up the leader.
That has prompted the safety car. So here we are behind the safety car, and it's come at a bit of an interesting time for us really, because we were catching Bottas, who at the time did have a mechanical problem. Whether we'd have caught him or not, we don't know, but the problem will have probably fixed itself by now. So yeah, it's a positive that we can catch up to the front four, although I don't know if we'll be able to stay with them. But unfortunately with us, of course, beginning to stretch a bit of a gap to Perez behind us. That's brought him right back up our gearbox, as well as the likes of Sainz and Verstappen. So we're going to have to wait for the race restart, get a perfect getaway, and yeah, just continue from where we left off in this race. But we are up to P5, which yeah, is an amazing position if we can keep hold of it. So the safety car is back in on this lap, and what it has done, it's helped us retain some battery power, which of course we have been struggling to retain and recharge throughout this race, and also get a bit of fuel back, as I think we were negative on our fuel before the safety car. So we're sticking to the gearbox of Valtteri Bottas and waiting for the leader Charles Leclerc to get the race back underway. As the front four start to speed up, we'll stick to Bottas's gearbox. We get a little bit of, I don't know if it was dirty air or a bit snap of oversteer there, but we're on the start-finish straight. The flags are still yellow,
Issue means you've lost one of the gears.
and it's gone green.
You have lost access to one of the gears.
So yeah, a little bit of sweetness there, as we've managed to potentially challenge Bottas into the first corner. He does cover us off, but we get a note from Jeff there, our engineer, to say that we've lost one of the gears, which is something I did not see coming at all. As you can see there, the gears jolting slightly as we entered the little chicane of sorts there. But yeah, the gearbox, which is only on 71% wear, is wearing slightly. Despite that though, Jeff, shut up. Despite that, we are going to try and take it to Valtteri Bottas, who seems to still have a couple of issues with his Mercedes. And we managed to overtake Bottas round the outside. We were very hesitant to not maybe cause too much damage, but we get through. And despite having one less gear, or missing a gear, I'm not sure which one it is, we are past Valtteri Bottas. And if he's having issues as well, let's just hope that while our gearbox, as you can see there, jolting once more, while our gearbox hopefully sorts itself out, again forcing us wide, Bottas can just keep the rest of the cars behind us. But we need this gearbox to fix itself very quickly, as we are just getting a huge snap of oversteer every time we skip whatever gear it is, as we head on to the start finish straight. And we are up to fifth, and up to fourth, sorry, and we're leaving Bottas behind. So the gearbox issue seems to have sorted itself out by the looks of things. So before that Mercedes fixes itself, let's try and get a bit of a gap between us and Bottas, because he'll soon catch us back up. We've got plenty of battery still and fuel to burn off. So we're on the final lap of the Grand Prix, and thankfully, due to Bottas's mechanical issues that he was having, he's been able to keep a lot of the other drivers behind. But as you can see, he's back up to fifth, and he seems to be back without the failure. His car's performing as it should do. So with one lap to go, we've got a Mercedes flying towards us.
Okay, gap ahead is 5.3 seconds.
But luckily for us, the main thing was to stay ahead of Bottas heading onto this long straight, which of course is very efficient for DRS. And Bottas is too far behind us to get that DRS.
And a lap of fuel now. The tank is empty.
So you'd expect the main, or the easiest overtaking point, or overtaking zone for Bottas to maybe nick this P4 from us has gone. So we just need to hold it together now through the final sector. Which, yeah, we almost skidded off on the previous lap on this third sector. It's the same corner where we've lost the back end slightly on a couple of occasions. We almost lost it again, which would have been heartbreaking. I think it's this corner here. So we take it a little bit more easier through there. Bottas, though, as you can see, is right on our tail. But I think we're going to hold on. We go around the penultimate corner. Keep it cool through the final corner. And we're going to stick ahead of Bottas, and we are going to finish with our best performance of the season by a mile. We finished in 4th place.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
The Mercedes team pulled out a fantastic performance today. They should be proud. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, the safety car completely changed the race, didn't it? It's hard to say exactly what would have happened without it, but there's no question that they came out of that situation in a good position.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again. It's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. It's a great result for Lewis Hamilton, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for Driver of the Day?
I think for Driver of the Day, I'd probably pick Lando Norris. He lived up to every inch of his reputation today, and I think he'll be going home, quite rightly, a bit proud of himself.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, that was certainly an incredible weekend of racing. Be sure to join myself and Ant for more exciting Formula One action soon.
So there we are then. Despite finishing in P4, of course, we had that 5-second penalty for exceeding the speeding limit in the pit, which is really frustrating actually, because I dare say we went over the speed limit by maybe 1 or 2 kilometers per hour. But that's the rules, and with the new pits here in Paul Ricard, I just didn't judge the braking point heading into the pit. So we dropped from P4 down to P7, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we can take a lot of confidence from the drive to get up to P4, which of course would have gave us 6 extra points. But we can't complain. We finished in P7. We've, as you can see by the time on the right hand side there, we are 9 thousandths, or is it 7 thousandths of a second? No, well, a couple of hundredths actually of a second behind Verstappen. So if we'd have maybe just had a slightly better exit on that final corner, we would have been we'd have been out of the 5-second range from Max, and we'd have been up to P6. But we can't complain. P7's an incredible result for us. Lewis Hamilton wins the Grand Prix again. His form is just absolutely immaculate so far this season. He beats Charles Leclerc to what would have been, I believe, his first ever Grand Prix win. He also gets the fastest lap as well. Pierre Gasly, though, gets his first podium, I believe, in F1. He stays third. Bottas does, as I say, overtake us up to 4. Perez up to 5th. Verstappen ahead of us in 6th. We are 7th, though. Joining us in the points, of course, is Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, and what a drive that is from Lando Norris in 10th. Butler just misses out. Our teammate Raikkonen, though, Kimi, had a good race. He climbed from 18th up to 12th, so he can take some positives from that race also. And further down the field, as you can see, Vettel is the only retirement. Lucas Weber, I don't know what happened to him. He was right behind us on the first couple of corners, but he ended up finishing 18th with his teammate behind him. A terrible weekend for Williams. So looking at the standings then, we could have been 6 points better off, but it wouldn't have made a difference. We're up to 10th in the Drivers' Championship. 2 outstanding races for us, and we're ahead of Magnussen and Grosjean, both the Haas cars and both the Renaults. Lance Stroll drops below Daniel Ricciardo also. And as for the constructors, there's no movement there. I think Mercedes have extended their lead at the top. We have extended our lead on Toro Rosso and Williams, and hopefully going to be knocking on the door of maybe trying to overtake Renault and possibly Haas in the next couple of races. So thanks to that great performance here in France, we've gained 5 points in our second rivalry with Kimi Raikkonen. We're 5-3 up on him, and we've extended our lead in the rivalry against Lucas too, so we're 4 points ahead of him. We can hopefully clinch that rivalry in the next race in Austria. And we did complete more than 8 practice programs in the last 2 races, which is a really easy goal. We always complete the practice programs, which gives us a bit of a bonus in terms of resource points. And look at the rep with the team there. It's increased massively with Alpha, as it has with all the other teams in the paddock. And as you can see, we will finish the episode with our second contract negotiation of the season. And as you can see in the contract value bar, our value's not too far ahead of our current contract, which is a surprise. I do think we maybe dropped below the contract value in a couple of races, maybe after Spain and Monaco, but we've sort of regained our composure and form in Canada and France. So we haven't got as much room to work with. In fact, our contract value's dropped actually there, so the contract I think they've just offered us is nowhere near, so they expect us to qualify in 15th, but finish the race in 7th, which I think there's a bit of a gap between them 2 goals, so I dare say we can get into Q2 successfully now. We've done well recently, so we can say we'll qualify in 14th, but the expected race position, we're going to move that up to 10th. I think we can aim for a points finish. I think that's definitely something we can aim for. We lost our rivalry with Kimi, so I still don't feel confident going in and saying I want to be the second driver. And the team goal, they've been hard. Let's go with medium. Let's try and soften them up a little bit with a medium. As for contract perks, we've currently got 25% resource bonus per race. We'll up that to 50. They've gave us the level 3 unlimited upgrades per department, which is very generous of the team. Pit stop efficiency I'm not too bothered about, but we'll leave that at 10% quicker. It's better than nothing. And upgrade speed, they've gave us level 2, which means that all major and minor upgrade times are reduced by 1 week. Do we try and be cheeky and go for all upgrades reduced by a week? We're going to do that. We're going to be cheeky, so we're going to go with 2 level 3s, a level 2, and we've had a fiddle around with the expected qualifying. So we've increased that, but we've decreased the team position, expected race position. So let's see what they think.
They didn't like those terms. Let's try again.
So we are slightly over on the contract compared to our value, so we've pushed the boat out a little bit there. So I think we'll drop down the upgrade speed to level 2 and see if that just drops us below, and it does.
The proposal has been accepted. The new contract will take effect from the next race weekend.
So I'd say that was a very successful contract negotiation. Our first one, we were miles off. We could have squeezed a lot more out of the team, but we've managed to give ourselves what I think is a realistic qualifying and race position finish. An easier team goal than what it was, and some good little perks too. So yeah, very good contract negotiation there. And we also have a bonus for obviously completing the practice program. So we have 1,456 resource points, and I think I'm going to go straight in to see if we can we can work on the durability for the energy store. We've just struggled with the ERS, so we're going to do that straight away. That's guaranteed to pass, so we have 900 points still to play with. Obviously the chassis upgrade is going to be repaired in time for Austria, so we've got potentially some aero upgrades. As you can see, the aero has actually been very successful. We are the 4th best, we're best of the rest in terms of aero, so I think it might be time to invest in the engine. We've only touched that once this season, so we're going to develop the crankshaft, give us a bit more engine power, which will be ready for Austria, which is a very, very big power track, one of my favourite tracks again. So that'll give us a bit of a boost round Austria, and I don't believe we have enough to upgrade any of the other. Yeah, there's a major upgrade on the downforce and another major upgrade, so we're going to have to save up for both of the next 2 aero upgrades. They're going to take a little bit of time to save up for, but we've got a major chassis upgrade coming, hopefully an engine upgrade coming, as well as some durability. So yeah, I'd say that's a very successful episode today. Despite the 5-second penalty, a great drive, another big points haul for us, and we've climbed up in the drivers, and we've also done some work to the car and got a better contract. So all round, a very good episode. So if you've enjoyed that, do give it a like. As always, do subscribe to the channel for much more F1 content to come, of course. And I'll be back for the next episode, which is another one of my favourite tracks, a track we have drove around, of course, in F2. We'll be back for the Austrian Grand Prix. But until then, thank you very much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.